You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by book number 2 from DomBrightmon, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. It is the field guide to help unleash the elite performer that is inside of you. Cop it today on Amazon.com or heading over to DomBrightmon.com and snag it in book, ebook, and audiobook, so that way you can take it on the go and get yourself on the go to your northbound success. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special awesome human for you today, this time courtesy of my good buddy Mr. Eminem himself. And no, we're not talking about the rapper or the candy rapper. That's right indeed, even though folks love peanut M&Ms. We're talking about Mickey Mickelson, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. The man who's a publicist for probably 1,000 authors, it feels like indeed. And he's hooked me up with another author, but not just any author, an award-winning author, y'all. That's right indeed. And this award-winning author is multi-talented because they are also a poet and a multi-genre writing, including horror. So you're about to get your scare on when you're listening to this. Well, maybe not too scary. Well, if you're driving, you don't want you to crash. It won't be that scary, y'all. So let's give it up for Luna Rey Hall. How you doing today, Luna?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. That's right indeed. But my goodness, the good news is, hey, all introductions aren't allowed to be 366 years long and probably forgot, 365 years of content. So am I filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, Luna?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well. I prefer short and sweet. So
Oh, okay. All righty. Sweet. Well, golf balls over basketballs. I get you.
yeah, something like that. Something like that.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So at the age of 13, did you imagine one day you become an author who's got an award win under their belt with many more to come?
No. So I've pondered this because I've been asked it a few times over the years, but no, I never really thought I'd be an author when I was a kid. You know, my mom always said that I supposedly wrote short books when I was a kid, and drew them like children's books. I don't remember that, so I'll take her word for it. But I definitely was not planning to be an author. I wanted to do something in like video game design or something like that. But when I got to college, I kind of found my niche in poetry, and it's just been poetry and writing ever since then.
Oh, there you go, indeed. Well, that's freaking awesome indeed, because if I'm not mistaken, I guess in this case, probably feels like a few years ago, you actually had to take a bunch of extra English classes going into college, right? So I guess that helped you find your love for writing and eventually gave you the confidence to write and publish books, I imagine.
Yeah, I know. In high school, English was actually one of my worst classes. I was really terrible at it. I was a terrible reader. But yeah, when I got into my undergrad, something clicked, and mostly was luckily able to take mostly just writing classes. Didn't have to do a lot of lit classes. So that was great for me because writing was more my passion than reading ever was, though I do read a ton now. But yeah, no, definitely.
Oh wow. Okay. All right. It's actually funny how that works. Is like those who eventually become published authors of books and do pretty good at it sucked in English class, especially high school English class.
Yeah, no, seriously, I went into, I don't think I told this story, but I went into my undergrad below college level in my English course. I had to take a class to get up to college level I was just, yeah, and I wasn't a bad student. I was really good at other classes. English just did not mesh with me during those teenage years.
I hear you. I definitely hear you indeed. Everybody's got their good old Achilles heel somewhere. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Sometimes the heels are high. Let me stop. Oh man. So my goodness, so what led you to poetry? Was it after the undergrad and bachelor grad level, I imagine, courses where it's like, oh, let me just go ahead and put some emotion on the page?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Poetry was actually one of the first courses I took in college, and I pretty much fell in love with it then. I think the professor that I had was incredibly helpful and instrumental in me kind of going forward in poetry. But I think it's just a good avenue for me to express things that are happening to me and things that I'm seeing in the world. My first book was about gun violence and masculinity. My second book was about queerness. So they've uh, they've definitely been able to really work as a function of my fear, a function of my happiness. There's a lot of joy and anxiety that gets pushed into those. But I think for me, it's just being able to. As I said, I like short and sweet, and I think that fits poetry super well. I don't like big, long, convoluted books, which is surprising considering the book, my latest book, The Patient Routine, which is the horror book, is kind of a chunky novella in verse compared to most novellas. So yeah, so I think it just functions as a way for me to express a lot of the harder emotions for me to express in my real life, but onto the page.
I hear you indeed. I hear you indeed. So my goodness, so I guess with the poetry on your belt and then going into the horror. So what led you to switch genres?
Yeah, so I started writing The Patient Routine just as a expression of health anxiety and MCD. That's primarily what the book deals with. It follows Ashton, who's a non-binary college student who suffers from hypochondria, and they check themselves into an ER, and the hospital goes under lockdown. And that was kind of one of my big fears. I started writing it at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. But I had hypochondria for significantly many years prior to that too. But that really escalated my fears. So I kind of just went into what the worst case scenario would be for a character involved in that situation, and that's how it shifted into a horror lens, because I think there's a lot of dealings with mental health and dealings with the hospital system that are pretty horrific and are not able to be captured unless you kind of tackle them in that horrifying way.
I hear you indeed. So how was it like making that switch to going full blown, well, I guess novella novel since it's thicker than a novella?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge going from writing poetry to a structured book. I think I leaned on a lot of my fellow writers that I've known over the years to give me feedback, and I definitely was very cautious and patient with myself, and building the timeline, building the outline of the book, and really getting down to I really had never written a structured story before. So this was my first like real attempt, and I definitely had a lot of amazing people tell me that like this just doesn't work in prose even though it works in poetry, and vice versa. So that was extremely beneficial through the process.
There you go. There you go indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, so with all these books under your belt, what's your future plans for upcoming books? You plan on switching genres again in the near future?
No, well, you'll never know. But I have another book coming out next year. It's my next poetry collection, and then I've also been writing a few more novellas that are horror, thriller, themed. I would love to do a fantasy book at some point. We'll see if that ever happens. But I tend to stick with around. I mean, horror is one of my primary things that I watch, what I read. So that's kind of, it was a real natural progression to shift into that. And my poetry is very, it's not dark or horror like, but it definitely has some of those elements anyhow. So that was, as I said, a very natural progression for me. I don't think I'll be out there writing romance or anything like that anytime soon. If I do, it'll be under a pseudonym. But I think that's probably it for now. I'll probably stick to horror, poetry, and adjacent genres.
So no Western swag, riding the horses.
Hey, there's actually a lot of really good Western horror right now. So I'm totally cool with blending genres. I think that's super interesting. But I think that's where a lot of my joy comes from writing, is kind of mixing the genres and seeing what kind of new things you can think up.
You're definitely right indeed. Actually, funny enough, I think earlier this year too, from the good old Bridget's Gate Press camp. Yeah, Casey Griffith. Yeah, she's does the horror
Oh yeah,
western
yeah.
style too. Yeah, so maybe a
Yes.
tag team book in the future.
Yeah, you never know. I would love to do some collaborative work, but yes, she's a great author too.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, so with all the work that you're doing and the pressure you're getting, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're being interviewed?
I kind of just let each interview be its own thing. I don't really, there's nothing that I'm seeking, to be asked. I think every situation's unique, and I enjoy kind of just letting the conversation flow naturally. I literally did like on a different interview earlier today. We talked a lot about AI. I think that was super interesting, and I think that in terms of, I really let the host do what they want. So I'm open to any questions that you have. I think, yeah, that was sorry, that was kind of rambly.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. It comes with the magical territory. And it's actually interesting with AI and everything like that. Cause yeah, it's kind of funny how like a lot of AI was so big with Chat GPT and then all these other tools came out and it's like, oh wait, I think y'all been planning this because I think Google and Bing have AI elements and of course Grammarly too. So I guess with all this AI and some of the effect that it has on writing, how do you think it might affect your work or if it has any effect at all?
Yeah. So my stance on AI is that I'll never use it for writing anything. I definitely think that it might have its advantages to use as a tool, just like the computer was a tool, Word was a tool. I think it might be able to be used as a tool, but I think right now, I think a lot of people are getting into dangerous territory of, creating things that are basically just using this generated info from other books. I mean, a lot of the AI generation tools are just reading and taking data from other books, other writers, other articles, and spewing out something that it sees as a combination of all these things. So yeah, in terms of what I'm doing, I definitely don't plan to use AI in the future. I don't plan to support presses that use AI tools unless it's in a very unique way that is not harmful to artists. Definitely looking out for, I think the biggest hurdle for me is looking out for book designers and other types of artwork that is being AI generated, to make sure that I'm supporting fellow artists the best that I can and not taking away from their livelihood. So that's kind of where I'm at with AI.
Sweet. I hear you indeed. Because it's like, oh, it's like, no, they try to take her Jew, not the AI. No, not the
Yeah.
darn AI. The robots are finally revolting. We knew it was coming all these years and we didn't do anything. We sped it up in 2023 now.
Right. Yeah. It does seem to be coming to a head this year.
Yeah, but you're all right though, because the funny thing about AI, it's like, yeah, it's artificial intelligence. It's got some intelligence, but not all the good intelligence. Because yeah, like what you mentioned earlier with some of it, basically plagiarizing some folks' work. I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Sarah Silverman, a couple others. Like had to go to a like they're filing a lawsuit against the I think the company behind Chat GPT because of the darn device, like technology, basically stealing some stuff from their work and their books. And it's like, wow, that is it's kind of interesting how it's like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of those programs do. They mine, word choice, sentence structure, syntax, all those things from writers, and then apply that to their made up writing. So yeah, I mean it's definitely like stealing people's words straight from their mouth and recombining and recoup and regurgitating them out in a different format.
Heck yeah, indeed. It's like, man, I guess there was really cheese on the moon, at least according to AI. Let me stop.
Yeah, right, right.
Oh man. But hey, speaking of cheese, we're coming down to the fun question I love to ask wonderful authors of their books and your most recent book at the time of this recording, The Patient Routine. If that book were a food, what would it be and why?
If it were a food, I think the patient routine would be a moldy, like stale bread, and I mean that in the most endearing way to my book. But I think it's the subject matter is very lenient on that kind of. I would think that that'd be one of the things that Ashton, the main character, would hate the most, and that's kind of what they're going through in the book. So I think that's what it'd be represent. It'd be something that's really old and moldy. Maybe not stale bread because that makes it seem like it's boring, but it would definitely be maybe a rotten orange or something like that. That's definitely a very uh, a book that's very fruitful and bright on a lot of aspects, but definitely has that disease and rot on the surface that you need to that you don't really want to eat it, but it's still you can still tell that it had beauty in it at some point.
All the puns intended, fruitful. I
Yes.
like it. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. I guess have a ball has a new meaning. In this case, have an orange.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That's right, indeed. Some moldy bread with a moldy orange. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. All the mold. That's right,
Yeah, I
indeed.
guess that's the breakfast of champions right there. Moldy bread and moldy orange.
That's right, indeed. It's food with character. The citrus has character, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Yes.
It's vitamin C with vitamin M. The vitamin mold.
Yes. Yes. I think that would be a nightmare for the main character for sure.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. That's right, indeed. Avoid vitamin M, y'all. That's right, indeed. You don't want the mold, y'all. Don't do it. Don't do it, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, this is the book. Pick it up. That's right, indeed. Get your horror on, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if it'll wake up tomorrow and you are 25 again, but you're still in the current year. What advice would you give to yourself?
I think keep putting yourself out there, keep being yourself. I think at 25, which wasn't, that's just a few years ago for me. I think that I was still scared of sharing my art, sharing myself. So I think just, put yourself out there, be honest with yourself and others, and you'll see that, you'll find people that are willing to accept you and appreciate your work and who you are more so than you thought.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's right indeed. Don't be shy, y'all. Put your art out there. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Some may criticize, but that means you're on the right path, and some will applaud indeed. But hey, if you can applaud your own work, then that's a good sign indeed. That's right indeed. That's the main thing that matters. It's like, hey, if you're proud of it and you're putting it out there, that is good because you'll find your fans. That's right indeed. And not just in the summertime either, you'll definitely find your fans.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, I think I struggled a lot, especially with this book, questioning how I should make it since it was a novella in verse. So it's in poetic form. And, I had a lot of publishers who were uneasy about that formatting. And I think, that's definitely one thing that I've learned that I don't think I would have done, a handful of years ago, that to just keep it in the form that it was written in and needed to be in to tell the story and not cave to what might sell better on the bookshelf.
Like, yeah, indeed. And besides, there's a lot of different ways to creatively express yourself out there. Indeed, it's like, hey, you're going to find somebody to go that route with you, so it's all working out for you. Indeed, it all worked out.
Yeah, definitely.
Woohoo! Well, for those who need to keep in contact with you and keep up with all the stuff that you're doing, and heck, even cop some copies of your magical books, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Yeah, definitely. I have a website, lunarayhall.com. It has links to everywhere my book is sold, which is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million Bookshop, etc. You can also find me on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, pretty much all of them at Luna Ray Hall, just my name. And I am out there. I'm pretty responsive to people if they reach out to me. So feel free to drop a comment or something.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. Well, there you have it, folks. Gonna put a link to all of Luna's stuff in the show notes. That way you can go into the wonderful moonlit hallway of light. That's right, indeed. You may find more than a rubber ducky, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. You'll find books. That's right, indeed.
Yes.
That's
I don't think there's a rubber duck yet in one of my books, but maybe a future one.
That's right, indeed. That's where the doctor tries to ease the patients by having a random rubber duck in the operation.
Yeah, that might have changed the outcome of my the patient routine with the hospital and lockdown. If someone just had a rubber duck.
There we go. That's right, indeed. It's where fiction gets even more fiction.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Oh, man. But before the rubber duck becomes real and starts quacking, any parting words before we close up shop?
No, just thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. I appreciate the time.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.